Hey, have you ever found yourself falling down a rabbit hole on your phone for hours, but then you can't even focus for 10 minutes on something you know is actually important? Well, today we're diving into how to hack your own motivation. We're going to make those hard things feel, well, easy. Let's get right into it. So let's talk about something we've all felt. This weird paradox that happens in our daily lives. You've got your to-do list, the important stuff you should be doing. But for some reason, getting started feels impossible. I mean, think about it. Scrolling through social media for 2 hours, playing video games all afternoon, that's easy. It's effortless. But trying to study for just 30 minutes or work on that side business for an hour, suddenly it feels like pulling teeth. It's like we know what's good for us in the long run, but our brains just keep picking the easy, instant thing. So what is going on here, really? Why does it seem like some people are just naturally wired to go after the hard stuff, while the rest of us struggle? And the big question is, can we actually trick our brains into liking the hard work? Well, the answer is yes, and it all comes down to understanding a single powerful chemical in our brain. To really get to the bottom of what's driving us, or, what's not driving us, we've got to look inside the brain. And pretty much everything comes back to one key player, a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, here's a huge misconception a lot of people have. We always hear dopamine called the pleasure molecule, but that's not really accurate. It's much better to think of it as the desire molecule. It's the chemical that gives you the motivation, the drive to get up and go get something. It is the engine that powers our ambition. And to really see just how incredibly powerful this desire engine is, scientists did some pretty wild and famous experiments on rats. So get this, researchers put these tiny electrodes in the rat's brains, and every single time a rat pulled a little lever, its brain's reward system got a jolt, releasing a hit of dopamine. The craving that this created was so intense, so powerful, that the rats would just keep pulling the lever over and over and over again. They would ignore food, they'd ignore water, they wouldn't sleep until they literally collapsed from pure exhaustion. So dopamine clearly drove these rats to do this one thing above all else. But what happens if you take that drive away? Well, that's exactly what the researchers did next. They reversed the experiment. They blocked the release of dopamine, and the result was staggering. The rats became completely listless, totally lethargic. They had zero motivation to eat or drink or mate. They basically lost their will to live. You could put food right in their mouths and they'd eat it, but they had absolutely no internal drive to go get it for themselves. That is just how powerful dopamine is. Okay, so we're not rats in a lab. How does this apply to us? Well, you could argue that our modern world has kind of become its own version of that experiment. It's like we're living in a digital cage that is constantly hitting our dopamine buttons. I mean, just think about our everyday lives, scrolling through social media, playing video games, watching endless videos online. All of these things are designed to work like a slot machine. They give us these little unpredictable rewards that keep us coming back for more. We're constantly checking our phones for that notification, and when we finally get one, boom, a little dopamine hit. We're becoming like those rats, just pulling a digital lever. The problem is, our bodies are these amazing systems that are always trying to find balance. It's a process called homeostasis. When it's cold, you shiver to generate heat. When it's hot, you sweat to cool down. Your body is constantly working to get back to its baseline. And this same balancing act is exactly why we develop tolerance to things. Think about it with alcohol, right? Someone who almost never drinks might feel woozy after half a beer. But a regular drinker, they need more and more to get that same effect. Their body has adapted. It's become less sensitive. And you guessed it, the exact same thing happens with dopamine. When your brain is constantly being flooded with these huge hits, it tries to get back to balance by downregulating, basically by reducing the number of dopamine receptors you have. Your brain literally makes itself less sensitive to it. And this new, crazy high level of stimulation, that becomes your new normal. And this creates a massive problem, because now all those activities that give you normal, healthy levels of dopamine, things like reading a book or exercising or working on a personal project, they start to feel really boring. They just can't compete with the supersized hits you're getting from your phone all day. So if our brains are all desensitized, what do? How do we fix it? Is there any way to reset that tolerance level and start actually enjoying normal life again? Well, the proposed solution is something called a dopamine detox. Let me put it this way. Imagine you ate every single meal at the best restaurant in the world, the most incredible, delicious food you could possibly imagine. After a while, that just becomes your normal. And if someone offered you a simple bowl of plain rice, you'd probably think it was totally boring. But what if you were starving on a deserted island? You haven't eaten in days. Suddenly, that same bowl of plain rice would feel like the most amazing feast you have ever had in your entire life. A dopamine detox works on that exact same principle. You're basically starving your brain of all that artificial, high-stimulation junk. By just embracing boredom, by taking away that constant flood of cheap dopamine, you give your brain's receptors a chance to recover, to reset. Your baseline comes back down to normal, and all of a sudden, those plain rice activities, the boring stuff, they start to feel rewarding and fun again. It's that simple. You get so bored, the boring things become fun. Okay, so this all sounds good in theory, but how do you actually put it into practice? Let's walk through a little playbook on how to do a dopamine detox and get your brain recalibrated. All right, if you want to go for the fast and radical approach, you can try a one-day hard reset. For one full day, 24 hours, you cut out all the major sources of high stimulation. That means no internet, no phone, no computer, no music, no junk food. You just let yourself be bored. Go for a walk, meditate, write in a journal. I'm not going to lie, it'll be tough, but it is an incredibly powerful way to let your receptors heal. Now, a full-day detox can be pretty intense. For a more sustainable, long-term strategy, you can actually use this whole reward system to your advantage. The key is to make your high dopamine activities the reward you get after you do the hard stuff. So, for example, for every hour of focused work you do, you earn yourself 15 minutes of internet time to use at the end of the day. The golden rule is simple: work first, then play. When you really boil it all down, this whole thing is about one central idea. It's about taking back control. It's about consciously choosing where you get your motivation from. Look, we're all dopamine addicts to some extent, and that's not actually a bad thing. Dopamine is what drives us to achieve things, to build things, to succeed. The really crucial question is, what are you choosing to be addicted to? You can get your dopamine hits from mindlessly scrolling, or you can learn to get them from building your business, from getting in shape, from learning a new skill. By understanding how dopamine works and by intentionally resetting your brain's baseline, you can completely transform how you approach hard work. You can learn to actually enjoy the process of chasing your biggest goals. So the only question left is, what boring but important thing will you learn to enjoy? The choice is yours. Thanks for watching.